Well, as you know, jury deliberations are underway in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial.
And to talk more about the case and the evidence presented, we're joined by attorney Tony Thedford, and criminal law is your specialty.
That is my specialty.
That's why you're here today. Let's talk a little bit about the jury instructions, which were given yesterday, which a lot of people say were confusing. Even the jury asked for more help on them today. You said that that's a little unusual, as well as Kyle Rittenhouse pulling a name out of a hat as far as picking his the people who will decide his fate.
Well, the entire piece with Mr. Rittenhouse is unique. I have never seen that. I've never heard of that in terms of a defendant's participation in pulling names from a hat to whittle down a group of jurors down to the 12 jurors who are set to deliberate. Even that piece for me is strange because typically the defense lawyer knows who, or all the lawyers know who the jury is going to be at opening statement. So that part is strange, but the participation of Mr. Rittenhouse here is also strange because it gives him a sense of authority, I believe, in that courtroom. And I think that that has been one of the, I guess, things that have been noticed throughout the pendency of this trial is sort of the treatment that the defendant has received by the judge. Now, typically, as a defense attorney, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, you would.
Right. But again, I think the that has been noted, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out for the jury in terms of what they intook based on those exchanges with the judge.
And you even said the instructions yesterday were confusing to you.
They were very confusing. Jury instructions are always confusing, especially in a murder case. I want to be clear about that. They've included many counts, many lesser included. So jurors have to be instructed on all of those things. Those instructions are generally read, but no one expects the jury to remember those instructions. So the fact that they asked for the instructions to be brought back to them today is not surprising at all, to be honest.
So 5 felony charges now
Yes.
that the jury is going over. How likely is it that they will split these verdicts and you know, take us through what they are going through, especially as it goes past more than one day of deliberations?
Sure. Well, I've never had the benefit of sitting in a jury room. I've sat outside of the room anxiously awaiting verdicts. However, I think that what we see here is a very responsible jury. They've deliberated at this point, I think about 9 hours, 9 to 10 hours at this point. That's a full days of work just dealing with what they've dealt with at this point. I would be shocked if they came back tonight or today, or that this jury did not reach a decision by tomorrow or even the day after. It's 2 weeks of trial. It's a lot of evidence, and I believe this jury understands the weight of the decision that they have to make. Not only are they making a decision for the young man who's accused, but they realize the ramifications of any verdict that they render in this case, because there are going to be people that are happy and there are going to be people that are unhappy. And so I think this jury has a tremendous weight on his shoulders, even compared to the typical jury, because of these other pieces.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those other pieces and the fact that we've got a person, only one person of color on the jury. We do not know their ethnic makeup. We're talking about, this is a reaction to the unrest of the shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man. What do you think that this verdict, what type of reaction will this have to society in general?
Well, it's a unique circumstance because if we're looking at and comparing it to the Ahmaud Arbery case down in Georgia that's happening simultaneously, that is clearly a case about race. There is the deceased is black, the defendants are white. In this case, the victims are white. The defendant is white. However, the backdrop, of course, is the dissatisfaction with the Jacob Blake decision, who was black, obviously, and was shot by a Kenosha police officer. So it's a unique element because it's layered. It's not just this easy black-white thing.
It's not at all. I mean, when we listened to the protesters outside the courthouse, we heard one young lady who said, this is about white supremacy. The others say that, you know, this is about a young man who was trying to keep the city of Kenosha from burning down in the riots.
Right. Very extreme reactions. But I think one of the unfortunate pieces here is that this young man, the 17-year-old child, essentially is caught up in the mania of being a soldier and being out there and allowed to carry a gun, and the power that he probably felt in doing that. And then once he's released, he's immediately, embraced by the Proud Boys and those organizations. I don't even know if this young man even saw that as a possibility here, but hey, he's probably going to join those people who embrace him at a very scary time for him. So it is definitely political, it is definitely racial, it is definitely part of a continuum of what we've been experiencing the last 2 years, certainly, with so much social unrest and political unrest and a lot of upheaval.
And we've got to wrap, but the fact that he was able to walk away, turned himself in, sat there in the waiting room before somebody came, and that would not have happened if he were a black man.
That would not have happened if you were a black man, or may not have happened anywhere else. That was a unique circumstance, including how he was bolstered by local law enforcement as a helper and made to feel proud of that. And again, if you give a young man who's not fully developed that sort of acclaim, that sort of power, we get this result. So I think those responsible are far outside of just the young man who's charged here. There are a lot of forces at play here, and it'll be interesting to see how this one turns out.
Tony Thedford, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you
Be
for
safe,
having
be
me.
well.